Now, I hope you had some fun doing those questions. I fully get it if you are uncertain about squinting modifiers, particularly if this is the first time that you've come across squinting modifiers, that you find out what squinting modifiers are. And indeed, it might shock some of you to now think about your language, about the things that you've written in the past, particularly if you've put squinting modifiers unintentionally in the middle of your sentences, that a sentence could be understood in two different ways. But that's exactly what can happen with a squinting modifier, which is why these questions are so important, because once you identify the problem, in your drafting, you'll now be able to avoid that same problem. So let's have a look at those questions and answers. Okay, let's start off with the first question. Writing unplanned emails quickly causes problems. Now, of course, when we're saying that, we get to choose, because of the way that we breathe or because of the pauses we introduce, what we want to say, which means the listener then understands it in the way that we want it to be understood. So squinting modifiers don't really exist when we're talking, but when we're writing, that's when they do. So there are two things that we could understand here as being done quickly. That is to say, either writing quickly or causing problems quickly. And here it's really important to identify structure. On both sides of the squinting modifier, we have a verb structure. So writing unplanned emails is one verb structure, and then we've got causes problems, which is another verb structure. And so quickly is a modifier that modifies verbs, because quickly is an adverb and adverbs modify verbs. So these are the two messages that could be understood. Quickly writing unplanned emails causes problems, or writing unplanned emails causes problems quickly. So this is kind of like a fun sentence to introduce the problem of squinting modifiers. Now we're getting into slightly more realistic situations and examples. So defining your terms clearly strengthens your arguments. So what happens clearly? Is it defining terms clearly strengthens your arguments, or defining your terms clearly strengthens your arguments? So here are the two messages. And you can see here that I've chosen a different way to resolve the problem, and that is through the use of commas, because the comma divides up the sentence and then communicates to the reader how the language is grouped together, which part is grouped together, and then which part is grouped together with the adverb. So when people come across squinting modifiers, very often they think, okay, if I put a comma in, then the problem goes away. That's not the solution I would always recommend. Certainly comma use can help the reader to understand, but don't forget that people misuse commas. Sometimes it's better to move or most of the time I would say, it's better to move the modifier out of the middle and put it towards one of the ends. In other words, closer to the thing it's modifying, but either at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence. But I've got to say, there are two ways of resolving squinting modifier problems. Number 3, he arrives to meetings late, often annoying clients. So he often arrives to meetings late, or that he arrives to meetings late, annoying clients often. So here we've got two different messages. And here, I think, as I said a few seconds ago, I think redrafting here and putting the modifier towards one of the ends is the way to solve the problem. And here we've got the often, as I said in the introductory video to this problem, that often is one of the main offenders. And often is something that we like to throw into sentences in very, very often because it's a well-used word. So here, when we're using only and often, we've got to think, are we creating a squinting modifier because of where I've put that word? Take these documents to court only on Wednesday. So once again, we've got that only. So is this only on Wednesday or only these documents? These are the two messages. And then so you've got the choice of how you either redraft that, only take these documents to court on Wednesday, or take these documents to court on Wednesday only, or by using commas. Watching him work slowly is making me angry. So here, this is someone who is writing down what they feel, perhaps not a good idea in an email expressing emotions, but here it could be understood in two different ways. One, is he working slowly and that's making you angry? Or is it making you angry step by step by step by step? In other words, is it making you angry slowly? So let me just shrink myself down here so you can see my answer. I'm just going to make myself tiny in the corner. It's making me angry watching him work so slowly. I'm slowly getting angry, as I said. Those are the two possible options. So think about how you would want to redraft that. And sometimes, this is where I'm going with this redraft, sometimes you have to go back to the beginning and think, what am I trying to say, and create a completely different structure or a largely different structure to communicate that message. Okay guys, I hope that this has given you an introduction into the problem of squinting modifiers. There are, as I said in the introductory video, plenty of resources available on the internet. If you go to Google, type in squinting modifiers, you are going to see lots of great resources explaining what those problems are, and a lot of those articles will go into other modifier problems, and we will have a look at those problems as well on this course.